Hey guys, if we reach 1,000 likes, we'll be giving out 2 of our new shirts. All you gotta do is click like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's been a debate that's raged on between nerds living in their parents' basement for decades now. One that's as old as the concept of being a need itself. And that is, what's better, cartoons or anime?
Anime was a mistake.
I know what you're thinking, but Molly, animes aren't cartoons. Just kidding. Well, that statement is 100% true, because anime is literally just Japanese-made cartoons. I know what people are referring to when they say anime. That's just like triggering special little snowflakes who want to act like their taste in porn is better because it was drawn by someone who looks like they constantly have a light being shined in their eyes.
No, get those lights off! Off!
But before we get into the meat of the topic, we should really define what anime and cartoon really mean. Some people consider something an anime even when it's not made in Japan, like The Legend of Korra, or Avatar, or Teen Titans, completely removing all meaning of the word like gender. They like to take anything that has a deep story or competent animations and slap it with the label anime. I guess because they don't want to admit that they're watching a cartoon. I've seen people go as far to call Steven Universe an anime. Obviously, because I have half a brain, I won't be using that definition. We're simply going to use the original traditional meaning of animation made in Japan. And for cartoons, well, everything else, you know, stuff that's made by people who can actually drive or win wars.
Die, you commie fucker! Don't kill my dad!
Now onto the actual argument. Really, there's only one side fighting this though, and I mean the other side is kind of like meh. Weebs for some reason have a hard-on with proving that they have the superior knowledge when it comes to what's a good show and what's a bad show, and they seem to want to force that knowledge onto everyone else. Kind of like that one Hillary supporter that constantly has to tell you why Hillary is better than Trump. Or that one Trump supporter that has to constantly tell you why Trump is better than Hillary and how she should be in jail. Or that Bernie Sanders guy who, you know, locked you up and took all your money to give it back to the people. But I'd be lying if I didn't understand why they're making those arguments of their superior intellect, quote unquote. You see, I'm not a huge anime watcher these days. I just don't have the time to dedicate to watching a show while working. But growing up in the time period when I did, in the height of Toonami, with shows like Yu Yu Hakusho, Ghost in the Shell, Hiroshi Kenshin, I loved anime. Honestly, at the time, it seemed like there were simply nothing Western cartoons were doing that could compare with more serious narratives.
I'm blowing them all away with my shotgun!
Let's use our heads.
What? You want me to headbutt them?
It's not wise to waste your spirit power. The more impatient we are, the more mistakes we'll make.
Well, how is headbutting gonna help?
Okay, mostly serious narratives. The main argument here is really that cartoons were made to be more mindless visuals to keep kids busy, so parents didn't have to actually raise them. While anime is something meant to be pondered, thought about. Anime is trying to be an art piece filled with subtle nuances and symbolism that tries to shape humanity and a generation that's watching it. Yeah, there's plenty of big-breasted, questionably aged high school girls, but who cares? I enjoy it all the same. Being sexualized doesn't mean the narrative is any less impactful. Granted, no one's watching hentai for a story, but the fact hentai exists doesn't take away from the shows that do try to tell a story. We're in a weird period in our societies where we both demonize sexuality and then demonize others for demonizing sexuality. You can't make this character too sexualized, but if you don't make her sexualized, you're denying her sexual identity. And there begins the endless loop of people crying and complaining. But you have to also remember, anime is a broad term. Just like cartoon, it incorporates a lot of different aspects. When we say cartoons, well, Family Guy, The Simpsons, Archer, South Park. Those are cartoons, but those aren't the cartoons we're talking about. Same with anime, Bible Black, Angel Blade, those are also animes, but we're not talking about those either, because I'd probably be terminated for those. Though I'm getting off track just a tad. Like I said, animes are seen as being more mature than cartoons, but how well does that actually hold up? Not very. You see, anime fans often make the same mistake someone who's trying to discredit an entire genre of anything does. They take a few select examples and say this represents all of X. And yes, it's true, there were some cultural differences back in the day between Japan and America, and there still really is. Cartoons were more aimed at children and anime was more aimed to the general audience. However, there were still plenty of darker, more gritty shows, and yet at the same time, there were also shows that were meant to be comedies that were simply written better than a lot of super edgy animes. Not everything has to be like Naruto and Sasuke venting their sexual frustration through weird innuendo hand signs and grunting to be considered serious. Not everything has to be explicit to be mature. Cartoons have grown and changed throughout the years. They have been largely stuck underneath an age gate, but even that is largely broken by South Park, Family Guys, and all those other shows we've mentioned. But the ones that haven't broken it, like let's say Steven Universe, perhaps are better off because of it. They have had to find ways to write about certain issues while still staying within their rating. And challenge often breeds creativity. Ratings can limit someone, but not always in the same ways you think. Filler words like fuck and shit to bloat dialogue, prolonged fan service scenes to pad runtime. These are all things that can occur with higher ratings. However, inability to tackle serious social issues, a need to self-censor certain ideas, and restriction on how you can draw a female and male character can also occur at lower ratings. Both sides have pros and cons. There are so many more animes than cartoons, which means they touch on a lot more issues, and you can find plenty of niche shows, but you have to go searching for the good ones. Cartoons are much fewer, if we're talking about American at least, but those are also heavily tested to ensure that they'll bring in a profit. However, sometimes this leads to bland, unoffensive content. For every Adventure Time, there's a Powerpuff Girls reboot, or at least how most people seem to be interpreting that show. For every Evangelion, you have a Sword Art Online. I probably triggered a lot of people with that example. People like different things and they like it for different reasons. Everything has a different pro and con to it. Just because I like a cartoon also doesn't mean I can't watch an anime. And just because you watch an anime doesn't mean you can't watch, a non-Japanese cartoon. Cartoons are growing and expanding, and it's actually funny because this world is probably in the most regressive period of its time, in recent history at least. Look, you can watch anime, you can watch hentai, you can consider whatever it is that you're watching to be the best. I don't care. The lesson here is that opinions are fine. There is no objectively better format, and the line between anime and cartoons are blurring every day. Each culture seems to take from another, and that's completely fine. We're all a melting pot of friendship after all. But the one thing that we don't want to happen is for cartoons and anime to stagnate. Because stagnation, well, that's worse than death. And in that scenario, everyone loses. In that scenario, everyone loses. Sure, that works. That ending works. I'll use that. That makes me sound smart and intellectual.